Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Perashat Haye Sarah is a powerful expression of the ultimate question that each of us should be asking, which is, what are we here for? What is our mission here in life? What are we meant to do? Perashat begins with telling us, Viyu Haye Sarah mea shana ve'esrim shana. She lived for 127 years. And then it tells us again, Shnei Haye Sarah. This was the life of Sarah. And anytime we're reading any pasuk, we ask the question, well, what is this pasuk supposed to be teaching me? Telling me about her lifespan and how long she lived and so on and so forth. By the way, this is the first mention of a woman in the Torah where we go through the details of her life, which means that Sarah herself has a high level of spirituality. Let's just backtrack for a second so we understand where we are right now. Parashat Lech Lecha, God tells Abraham to get out of your home, leave your family behind, leave your birthplace, go on a journey. He does not tell him where to go. Okay? He's traveling, he leaves Iraq and ends up somewhere in Israel. And he gets there and there's a famine, right? The first time the Torah mentions the word famine is in Parashat Lech Lecha. And the Chachamim tell us the first time you see an idea mentioned in the Torah, that's the first time it happened in history. Which means Abraham never even heard of the concept of a famine. Imagine living in a world of so much abundance. Like in Egypt, you had the Nile River. There's no famine. You always had water. You always had so much, produce. It was so plentiful. Everything was so accessible. So he lives in a reality where everything comes to a stop. Okay, he moves. He goes down to Egypt. Okay, he gets there and they abduct Sara. They abduct his wife, his best friend, his confidant, his niece, his everything. Right? And he's got to contend with the fact that his wife is abducted. So now let's see a pattern over here. God says leave, he leaves. Go to this land. He gets there. He sees something crazy, a famine. He's never heard of it before. Then he leaves that place and he goes to a new place that God tells him go down to Egypt. And then his wife gets abducted. Now, I don't know about you, but right now God is batting 2 for 0. You know, saying like he's 0 for 2. Like this is like a horrible scenario. But somehow Abraham, he just keeps plugging away. He does this 10 tests non-stop, one after the other, and somehow he succeeds. He's flying colors. Amazing. Past 10 tests, I wouldn't want these tests. And the last test, it's actually a machloket, is a debate as to what the last test was. Some say the last test was putting up Yitzchak on the Akedah, offering Isaac as a sacrifice to God. And the fact that he did that, that's his 10th test. But others say no, that the 10th test was coming back home and finding his beloved Sara. He had such a deep passion and love for her, finding that she died as a result of the news. Right? So he has a choice now. What is he going to do? God promised him all these things. Let's just go through what the promises were. You'll be a nation as numerous as the stars. You'll inherit the land of Israel. Okay? Those are the 2 big promises. Your name will be great. Okay, so let's talk about the first one. Nation as great as the stars. How many children does Abraham have at this point? 2. His main son, Yitzchak, 1 guy. He's 37 years old at this point, and he's still living at home. Okay, does not look good for shidduchim. Does not look good for a guy who wants to be dating. Okay, he's still living at home. All right. Abraham gets home, and we know in this week's parasha, he has nowhere to bury her. Right? He has got nowhere. V'tamat Sara b'kirat Arba, she dies in Hebron, and he has no burial land. They don't even recognize that the land is his. So here's a guy who spent the last, 75 years of his life running around doing whatever God says, and he ends up with nothing at the end. What does he have at the end of it? He's got 1 kid who wants to kill his other kid. He's got no place to bury. He's got nothing. Would you still believe? Would you still want to be the pallbearer of monotheism? Would you still want to worship God if everything that he's brought you has been challenge and maybe even misery? So how do we evaluate what life is about? Like, what are we looking for as Jews? This is it's funny. The irony of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zechron Bracha, says that, the same issues that Abraham was facing 3,800 years ago, okay, are the same issues that we're facing today. We have a shidduch crisis. People can't get married, right? And they were still debating whether or not the land of Israel belongs to us. Nothing has changed. These are the same issues. Maybe that's proof that God exists in his great sense of humor. He's like, yeah, you guys are going to be, this is going to be your challenge for the rest of your lives. But Abraham doesn't give up hope. Abraham doesn't walk away. Abraham is steadfast. And the question is why? That's question number one. Question number two, this is a very important question. We know from last week's parasha that God says, Shema b'kol ishtecha. Abraham marries Hagar. When he leaves Egypt, he ends up inheriting a princess of Egypt. Hagar was Paro's daughter, okay? And Paro says, I'd rather my daughter be a servant to the house of Abraham than to be a low princess doing immoral things in Egypt. And they inherit her. They adopt her. Sara feels bad that she has that Abraham doesn't have any children, and says to Abraham, "Listen, for the sake of children, this is their equivalent of doing some kind of a surrogacy, some kind of a process of giving him a child, and he has a child with Hagar, and eventually we hear that Sara gets pregnant, and Sara sees that Hagar's son Ishmael tries to kill Yitzchak, and tells Abraham, you got to get rid of the woman and the kid. They're no good. Kish him. Get out. Get rid of him. So Abraham says, how could I do this? How could I throw away this woman? I'm a chesed, ish chesed. I can't just throw out a kid and a woman on the street. She said, you got to get rid of him. He turns to God. He has nevuah, prophecy. God says, Shema b'kol lishtecha. Listen to your wife. Listen to the voice of your wife. She knows what she's saying. She's got it right. And this is one of the tests. Abraham's got to listen. He's got to kick Ishmael out of the house. And Hagar. He does it. Uncomfortable, but he does it. So we learn from that pasuk, Shema b'kol ishtecha, that Rashi tells us there that Sarah was a greater Naviya. She had greater level of prophecy than Abraham. That if we had a meter, a prophecy meter, Sarah's level of prophecy is that much greater than Abraham. She's the one pulling all the strings. She's the one informing him. She's the one telling him what to do. And in this week's parasha, what happens? We don't really know. Just all of a sudden, Abraham is offering up Yitzchak, and then we turn the page, and boom, she's dead. Rashi comes in and he fills in the gap for us. And this is what he says. He says, it says like this. It says, Lekach shenichtav shana b'chol klal v'klal, lo malacha shekol echad nidrash latzmo. He asked a different question. He's first saying, why is the pasuk written this way? That these are the years of Sarah. She was 100, and she was 20 and 7. Just tell me she was 127. Just add it up for me. Don't give me each number and make me do the math. You could do it for me. You're the writer. So he says to teach you that each section of those times, like 100 and 20 and 7, are a different reflection of a life of perfection that she led. When she was 100, she still was like a 20-year-old when it comes to her sin. In the Gemara, you don't get punished for your sins until your 20th birthday. And up until that point, it's all on God. Before that, if you're bar mitzvah, it's on your parents. So she's like, when she was 100, she was free of sin like a 20-year-old, right? When she was 20, she had no sin either, and she had no sin at all. She was like a 7-year-old. Like, she kept her beauty. She was this woman who was, beautiful inward and outward. She was intellectual, genius, different stages of her wisdom that are exposed. And that's why the Torah is breaking down these numbers like this, to teach you that she was someone that was profoundly brilliant. Okay, but it doesn't really tell me why she dies, okay, or how she dies. Just says she dies suddenly. It's a random thing. This is, by the way, this is a shocker. Remember, the fact that she just died like this means that women did not die like this. There's something unique about this death. We don't hear about deaths like this. But Tamat Sara b'kirat Arba, Chevron, be'eretz Canaan, ve'evo Avraham l'spod Sara lebichta. He hears about it, finds that she dies in Chevron, and he cries, he eulogizes her. B'kirat Arba. Why is it called Kirat Arba? It's called Kiryat Arba al Shem Arba Anakim Shayu Sham. There were 4 giants that lived there, whatever that means. Davar Acher al Shem Arba Zugot Shnifru Sham. It's also named after the 4 pairs that are buried there. We have you have Adam and Chava, you have Abraham and Sarah, you have Yitzchak and Rivka, and you have Yaakov and Leah, all buried there. And therefore it's going to be called there. It's going to be called that after this idea that this is where these 4 people are going to be buried. It's like foreshadowing it. So, why does she die? This is what Rashi says. He says, the reason why there is a juxtaposition between the death of Sara and Akedah, the offering of Yitzchak. Lefi she'al yedei besorot ha'akedah, since she heard the news of the Akedah, shenizdaman bana l'shchita, that her son was about to be slaughtered, k'mat shelo nishchad, and he almost wasn't slaughtered, parcha nishmata mimena v'meta. Her soul couldn't handle the news, boom, she died. This is a strange thing. We just said that Sarah was greater than Abraham, right? She should have been elated, happy that he passed the test. Abraham passed the test. Yitzchak passed the test. This is not just some G. This is a woman who is highly developed, intellectual, super spiritual. She has prophecy. Look through what the Rambam says. How Rambam says you need to do in order to get a little bit of prophecy from God. Not a simple task. She's a special, powerfully profound, she's a powerful woman. So why couldn't she handle the news? Why does the news kill her? Midrash tells us that it was Og that told her. Another Midrash tells us no, that it was the Satan that told her. It doesn't really matter how you understand the story. Bottom line is, she hears what happened, and she ends up, she can't handle the news, she can't handle the information. So, I'm going to give you two answers to this particular question, okay? Answer number one is like this. We believe in Judaism that every single one of us is tested. We're here to overcome a unique challenge. We're here to become the best version of ourselves. And the only way that can happen is if we're put in a scenario where we are tested, where we are challenged, and we are able to overcome that challenge. I'll give you an example. Ready? You could Google this later. There's something called the wallet test. Izzy, you're going to like this. Okay, the wallet test. You know what this is? They took 17,000 wallets and spread them around different countries around the world. And what they wanted to see was how many of these wallets were going to be returned. Okay, so they were put them in these clear wallets so you could see it automatically. There's actually money in them. They put money, they put a fake business card in there. They put like a key in there just to try to see if, people will return these things. And believe it or not, in these very poor cities, it didn't matter poor or wealthy, people returned the wallets. Every city had like 12 wallets, I think, and 8 or 9 were returned in these big cities. Like New York, out of 12 cities that were put down, 8 of them were returned, which is pretty good, considering other places were way less. South American countries did very bad in returning wallets. But it doesn't really matter, but they were returned. So they felt, well, why is this happening? Maybe the temptation of holding onto the wallet isn't great enough. Maybe if we put more money, let's up the ante. Let's not put $10 in there. Let's put $80 in there. Let's put $100 in there. Let's see if that changes the test. What they found was shockingly surprising. They found that the more money that was in there, more statistically, more of those wallets were returned. And the question is why? Why is it that when you put more money in there, they were returned? You think the opposite is true, that the more money, the more likely you keep it. And there's this idea that's baked into our subconscious, I believe. And that is that the more challenging something is, the more we are driven to actually accomplish and overcome the challenge. This is baked into our nature. Now, this is the key. You are not given a challenge. In Judaism, we believe that you are not given a challenge unless you have the power of overcoming the challenge. Which means, how often do we say, oh, I wish I had that guy's challenges. Oh, I wish I had that guy's challenges. That's a mistake. No. Your challenges are yours alone. If you actually think about all the things that you are going through, all the hardships that you are in, if you had to choose to come back and go through any other challenges in life, you'd always want to choose yours because you are aware of your own challenges. You wouldn't want someone else's challenges. But more than that, you are giving the siyata d'shmaya, this special power from heaven to overcome the challenge that you're in. The second you try to step into somebody else's shoes, the second you try to force yourself into somebody else's challenge, you know what happens? V'tamat Sara, and she died b'kiret Abba. The test wasn't hers. She was not given the special power to overcome that challenge. It was her challenge. Abraham gets stronger and stronger with each test. To make the test harder, you think he'd walk away? No. He doubles down and it gets harder, just like the wallet test. The more money you put in there, the more people returned it. The more difficult something is, the more you love it, the more you embrace it. But Sarah is this genius of a person. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how great you are. She might be even greater than him, but she doesn't have that special divine assistance to overcome it. She can't handle it. Everything that we are given is uniquely ours. When you learn to embrace your challenge, when you learn to overcome your challenge, that is your greatest expression of Tzelem Elokim, of your divine soul. That's how you bring God into the world. This is how we become better, greater human beings. That's what it's about. You know what the Perasha is about? The Perasha is asking us to ask a question. It's a simple Perasha. She dies. We got to find the shidduch for Yitzchak. Yitzchak's got to marry Rivka. He has got kids. The whole story is just like a typical story in the Torah, right? About someone's life. Very simple lives, nice people. And the question the Chumash is asking us this week is, what kind of lives do we want to live? Do we just want to live life? Or do we want to be alive living life? Do you know what it means to be alive living life? It means making the best choices you could possibly make. It means overcoming challenge. We know later, Yeshev Yaakov. Yaakov bikesh leshev b'shalva. He wanted no tests. He got tested. He loses Yosef. Right? There is no scenario where you're not going to be tested. You're going to be tested no matter what happens. The only question is, are you going to be willing to play the game, or are you going to give up? Are you going to give in to the situation that you're in? The more you embrace this life that we have, the more you recognize that the challenge that we are going through together is our unique challenge. The more we are able to recognize that we don't want to live a life of a zombie just doing the same thing over and over again, copy, repeat, copy, we don't want that. I want more. The only way to do more is by asking yourself is how I can become more. Looking at the things that you're struggling with right now and looking in the mirror and saying, I want to be more than the challenge that I'm in right now. Don't lean on your natural talents to get by. Abraham became the father of the Jewish people. He had every reason to walk away. Every reason to say, I'm out. I'm tapping out. I'm done. I don't want it. I don't want to deal with the anti-Semitism. I don't want to deal with the kids that are crazy. I don't want to deal with the politics in Israel. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm hedged. I'm done. Send me to some beach somewhere, Turks and Caicos, give me some martinis, give me a little book. I'll read the Torah. I'll be okay. That's not the life God wants us to live. He wants us to live a life where we are engaged in society. We're working with humanity. Abraham recognizes that life is all about that first step. He recognizes that greatness is not about finishing the deal, not about finishing everything. You're not here to finish things. You're here to play your part, play your role. He set things in motion, and that was enough for him. He had a son, one son, who's going to carry on the mission. We're here to play our parts. How we play them, that's on us. I could tell you very simply, look at the circumstances that you're in. Look at where the challenge is. Don't run away from it. Embrace it. And you know that you are casted for the purpose. You were cast for a very specific role. And there's no one else on planet Earth that could play that role. So you have a choice. You could either let your life happen, or you could make it happen. You could live your life. You could have a life that is worth living, or God forbid, you could just have something that these actors get burnt out and not want to deal with the situation that you're in. Once you embrace the challenge, you're given the special siyata d'shmaya to overcome it. Once you double down on what you believe in, you become like Abraham, ani choma, I am like a unwavering wall. When it comes to my belief, I'm committed to what I believe in. I'm playing my part. You will live a life like Sara. At 100, you'll be like 20, and 20 like 7. Everything will flow for you. When you don't have that flow, you live a life of depression and misery. Double down on what it means to be the best you, and you will live a life of happiness and greatness. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. Looking forward to chatting with you next week from Morocco. I'll be in Marrakesh, and I'll go live from there as well. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.